Hey everybody, it's Gordon Majak here, back with another episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. The sunlight here in the afternoon's going a little crazy at the moment, but I kind of like this crazy light, so I'm not going to block it. I'm just going to let it go and we'll see what happens. I kind of need that light, right? You know what I mean? So, today, in part two of our three-part series that began yesterday with part one, which was Lisa Stansfield singing her soul out there on All Around the World. Today, in part two, we are going back to the UK once again and back there to the early 1990s for another one of my all-time favorite female vocal performances. Let me show you who I am talking about here. Here is our album cover from 1992. It is Everything But the Girl and their acoustic album, and we will be listening to a song called Driving. Now, Everything But the Girl, if you don't already know, is actually a duo of Ben Watt, who plays keyboards and guitar and basically all the instruments and also produces their fine records, and his partner Tracey Thorn, who is an exceptional singer, as you will soon find out. Now, this album came out here in 1992, and the deal with this record is acoustic, as you can see from the title there. It is a blend of several cover versions, quite exceptional cover versions of other artists' songs, done so well by Everything But the Girl, done so well by Ben Watt and Tracey Thorn that in most cases I actually prefer their version to the original version of some of these great songs. You'll see what I mean if you pick up the album. And then the rest of the album is a variety of previously released material from their own catalog that they have reworked and redone and taken into the acoustic direction. And that is where this particular song, Driving, comes from. Driving was actually released initially on this album. This is an album called The Language of Life. This was a 1990 record, so 2 years before the acoustic album. This was the record that had Driving on it for Everything But the Girl. And I loved this album. It's another great album to pick up if you don't have it. I loved that album, and I loved their original version of Driving, and I never would have thought that any of it could have gotten any better than it already was there in 1990. But 2 years later, when this acoustic album came out and I heard these acoustic versions of these songs, both the covers that I said earlier that were so incredibly well done, but when I heard their version of Driving, this acoustic version with just Ben Watt on the piano and Tracey Thorn singing her soul off again, these vocalists are just so incredible. When I heard this version, I never needed to hear the original ever again. I have heard it again, but this acoustic version to me is just such a defining moment and so beautifully captures one of the real major aspects of Everything But the Girl and their talent and some of the music that they've put out. Now, as I said, I was familiar with them back there in 1984 when they first started, because two things happened back then. That's when they released their first album here in the U.S. And then that same year, Tracey Thorn, the exceptional vocalist, made a guest appearance on another album that I was very fond of by another artist. And the combination of hearing her sing essentially what's a torch song on this other album, I don't want to give too much of that away because I'm going to play that song for you guys later. The combination of hearing her sing this incredible torch song on this other artist's album and then simultaneously basically the Everything But the Girl album, debut album, came out there, I was well aware of them right from the start. It was 5 albums into their career. This is the 5th album of their career there at 1990, and that's the album with Driving. So they were 5 albums into their career when they wrote this song, Driving. And this acoustic version, like I said, just put me on my back. I could not believe it. Now, the cool thing about Everything But the Girl, and one of the reasons that I always liked them so much, is they came out of that UK scene there in the early to mid 80s, along with artists like Paul Weller and the Style Council and Matt Bianco and Swing Out Sister and Sade and Basha and some of that jazzy pop stuff. Sort of a I would define that subgenre there, sort of like a pop, jazz, soul blend that just had such a cool sound to it. So sophisticated, some really nice chord changes, really cool lyrics on a lot of these songs throughout that genre across all of those artists. Um, just a really cool little niche of music there. And Everything But the Girl, Ben Watt and Tracey Thorn were right in the middle of that, making some of the coolest music out of that category. And as I said, those first 5 albums of theirs, I am a big fan of those records and highly recommend them. But in particular, I think this acoustic album is something special. I'm not going to talk too much because this song is really short and I really want you guys to just be able to enjoy this whole song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it. I'm going to pause it immediately to satisfy the censors, our overlords. And then I'm going to rewind it and let it go. And hopefully that will go all the way through and you guys can just enjoy it from start to finish because it is such a beautiful thing. And Tracey, what can I say about Tracey Thorn's voice? I mean, I really want you guys to hear it and then I'll tell you how I feel about her voice at the end. Okay, let's come back at the end. From 1992, this is Ben Watt and Tracey Thorn, Everything But the Girl, the name of the duo, and an incredible song called Driving. Pause. I know, awkward. Rewind. Enjoy this one.
You see, some days I find the old ways frighten me too easily. I leave my key and say I'm too young. But lover boy, if you bring me home, I'll come driving fast as wheels can turn. Fast as wheels can turn.
First of all, what a song. I mean, just as a composition, that is such an incredibly beautiful piece of music. But let's talk about Tracey Thorn and those vocals. She has such a rare gift and a talent in the sense of projecting such an incredible vulnerability in her voice and yet such an intimacy. And it's like so many of those passages, it's like she's sitting next to you and just singing into your ear. It's so up close and so intimate. And then the lyrics, I mean, their lyrics are so beautiful. And again, it's so personal. It's like sharing her most innermost thoughts and feelings. And she conveys so much of that emotion so beautifully and so subtly in her voice, that just that vulnerability, my God. And it just makes such an emotional connection for me, and it always did. And like I say, going back there even to the very beginning, and when we get to the other song that I was referring to earlier, when she was guest appearing on another artist's record, wait till you hear this girl sing a Torch song. I mean, just such a talented vocalist, so beautiful. What a voice. Now, you may also know that a few years later there in their career, this is 1992, and it was there in 1995 when Everything But the Girl had their huge breakthrough in the mainstream pop world with their big hit Missing, which, let's see, they took that all the way up to number 2 in the U.S. chart, number 5 on the adult contemporary chart. And certainly pleased and happy for them to see them finally have some breakthrough success, some commercial success, and some recognition there in 1995 with that song Missing. But on a personal level, and in terms of really connecting to their music, I have to say it's those first 5 or 6 albums back there in the 80s, and certainly up to this acoustic album there in 1992. It's that particular era of theirs when they were really working this jazz, this sort of sophisticated pop jazz angle. That's, to me, that's where the real gold is. And again, they did enough great stuff. I could work through a few songs of theirs, no problem. Ben Watt, such a beautiful performance on that piano. I'm sitting here right in front of the monitor, and I can hear every little nuance of him playing that piano. Such a beautiful piano accompaniment there, and Tracey Thorn just projecting on that vocal. And she's got one of those voices that just has always haunted me. It's just so immediately emotional, and like I said, such a level of intimacy in those lyrics and the way she conveys them. Just beautifully done. Everything But the Girl from 1992, their great song Driving. Get that album, folks. I'm serious. This is such a cool record. Though they both are, but this is such a cool record. You can get this used CD cheap. This is a good one. The acoustic album. All right, that is part 2 of our 3-part, some of my favorite female vocal performances. Wait till you hear number 3 tomorrow. We're in a pretty good little run here. We had Lisa Stansfield, so soulful. Today, it's Tracey Thorn just projecting that beautiful vulnerability and intimacy. And tomorrow, it is the queen, not the queen of what you're thinking. Not that queen, the other queen. Anyway, we will see you then for that one. Another doozy, I promise, folks. Enjoy Everything But the Girl. These guys had some cool stuff back there in the 80s and 90s. Check it out. See you soon. Why don't you just press the button?